Hey everybody, Matt Lawton here on the Astrological Winds channel. And we're going to look at the month of April's forecast. So remember, we do these in levels. There's long-term stuff, goes on for like a year or so. And there's medium-term type stuff that goes on for a month or so. And there's kind of like lesser stuff that goes on for a week or so. And then even daily stuff. And when I say stuff, I'm talking about transits. So like every day the moon does transits, and it has a lot to do with our emotions of that day. Every week I do a weekly transit report. It has a lot to do with what the inner planets are doing that week in transits and how they're affecting our everyday life. And then we look at monthlies to see a bigger picture, and usually tie into even yearly type transits. So this is the one for April. And we just really need to have a heart-to-heart talk about this stuff because, the world's in a very, very big crisis right now. The coronavirus has altered our reality amazingly quickly. And the big effect, obviously, besides the actual health effect that it's having on people's health and the deaths of thousands and thousands of people, is that it is crashing our economy, which is our man-made way of existing in reality. So a lot of people in the last week or so were like, you saw this coming, or you kind of saw this coming, or did you see this coming, kind of thing. And it's time to basically have a heart-to-heart talk about transits, because they're a very real thing. So if you'll remember, and I know it's going back quite a bit, but like the beginning of January, I did a annual or yearly look at 2020. And I said that the biggest transit going on for this year was going to be Saturn and Pluto's conjunction in Capricorn, which occurred the first time right then at the beginning of January, just as Jupiter was going into Capricorn too. Jupiter was not conjunct them at that point, but was going into the same sign. So it's talking that Pluto's conjunction to Saturn was going to be the single biggest influence of the year 2020, and even going into 2021. And it's a conjunction. So it's a conjunction. Two planets are together. They've come together in the same degree of a sign, and that's the beginning energy. So this is a seeding energy. And like I said back then, what happens with Pluto Saturn is irrevocable changes and transformation to the structures of our lives. Now, back in January, actually, the coronavirus was already starting in China and was largely being ignored by the rest of the world, much to our chagrin at this point. Did I know back then that the coronavirus was going to be the thing that would be one of the manifestations, or the main manifestation at this point, of the deterioration or breakdown of the structures in our society? No, I did not. But I did know, and I did convey, Pluto and Saturn were going to give us a very, very tough ride. And so when we think about Pluto and Saturn together, it's two planets that once again have a lot of power, have a lot to do with traditional power and authority, and in Capricorn, the structure also. Saturn very strong in Capricorn. Saturn's all about structure and restriction and things like that. So, basically, we're at the beginning of a completely new age, and now we can see the way it's starting to unfold. Pluto and Saturn are about having to deal with less resources. Pluto and Saturn are about having to deal with narrower choices in our lives. Pluto and Saturn have to do with being restricted in our movements and in our abilities to move, in our freedom. Pluto and Saturn bring complete transformation of the old structures in our lives so that they're never the same again. When a Pluto transit occurs, to us, to the world, it breaks down what was there and changes it. And it never goes back to what it was again. Pluto brings up the shadow, the ugly underbelly side, the things that have been pushed under the rug that we prefer not to deal with. The shadow side of all the Saturnian structure that we've built up in our physical reality, and the hierarchical way that we've built that reality is all starting to crumble now. So this is just the beginning of that. And Saturn is one of the two societal planets with Jupiter. Pluto is one of the 3+ outer planets that have a lot to do with just the evolution of humanity beyond the structures that we've built into society. So if those structures are holding us back or deterring us from reaching where we need to go, Pluto and Neptune and Uranus will make sure that they no longer do that. And that's what's going on now. So this is not only an event that's going to come and go and things are going to go back to normal. There's going to be a new normal. So it's a situation that we all have to deal with. Now, there's no exact conjunction this month going on, but because Jupiter conjuncted Pluto, and I talked about that at length on my weekly report just a couple days ago, so go back one episode, because I'm not going to repeat everything that means. This has made it a very sensitive time again, where Jupiter has come in, and Jupiter is all about expansion and very weak in Capricorn, and it's basically taking that Jupiter and Pluto ambition, drive, energy that I was talking about in my weekly report, and it's putting it behind the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. It's expanding that. So now all of a sudden we have authorities telling us we can't go anywhere. We literally can't go anywhere. We can't leave our home. We have authorities telling us we can't go out and make money. So this is like about as Pluto Saturn as you get. And now Jupiter's pushing that. And it's not bringing benefits because it's in Capricorn. It's just expanding what Pluto and Saturn are starting to do. So the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction this month, this week, is just really pushing that. But the lesson here for all of us is in the transits, there's no get out of jail free card for anybody here. This Pluto-Saturn transit is one the whole human race is sharing. And we all have our personal transits too. If you're a Capricorn right now, in the last few years, you've had Saturn and Pluto going across your sun at some point or another. And I'm sure your whole life has had to reform. So we can get a really good lesson here on showing how transits work. And they're going to manifest in one form or another. And it's our choices that dictate somewhat how they're going to manifest. Our consciousness creates our reality by the decisions we're making. So if we make conscious choices to ignore a virus when it first comes up, then this is the results we get. Or we've elected leaders that have chosen to ignore a virus when it first comes up, and this is what we get. Collective decision we made together. Maybe none of us are individually responsible alone for it, but we are going through it together. Tough love talk. Tough love talk. So, interestingly enough, one of the four main asteroids, Pallas Athene, which I'm sure you've heard me mention before here and there, is also conjunct Jupiter and Pluto exactly in Capricorn. And every time Jupiter and Pluto conjunct, Pallas is right there with them this year. Pallas Athene is one of the four main archetypes that the feminine energy through humans manifests as in this reality on Earth. And that is the daughter archetype. The daughter who is the female warrior. Pallas Athene is air energy. It's intellectual energy. It believes in equality. She believes in equality and justice. She is a warrior. She does not mess around. She is chaste, actually. And here we are, stuck, all alone, a lot of us, not being able to socialize. What Pallas wants us to see is how inequality and injustice built within the fabric of that hierarchical Capricorn system, hierarchical, patriarchal system, has led to where we're at now. She wants us to see those injustices, that inequality, and she wants us to act on it. She wants us to take her sword, her shield, and act on it. She wants us to take all the wisdom that we have gained and through this darkness make new forms. She wants us to accept all the changes going on right now, knowing that they're going to lead to a better place. Right now, I see in the press that a lot of people are becoming aware of how the structures of our society set us up for where we're at, and are like, when things return to normal, things need to be different. Things aren't going to return to normal if you're referring to prior to the virus. Not going to happen. There's going to be a new normal. And we need to use the energy of Pallas to make sure that it's equality and justice for all. Now, interestingly enough, Pallas is going to go into Aquarius on April 29th, following Saturn into Aquarius, and then early next year, Jupiter, bringing those structures into a higher level, redoing them, making them work better, bringing more equality and justice. Just the same type of stuff I talked about when Saturn went into Aquarius. She is there to help us. Look for her signs. Look for her to come to you and show you the way that you can help change what needs to be changed in the structures of society, now that we see where all these weaknesses are within it because of Pluto Saturn exposing a lot of the things breaking down. Okay, now, interestingly enough, one other point I'd like to make about the month of April. We got the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. We have Pallas going into Aquarius, both tying into the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. Pluto's also going retrograde this month on April 25th for 5 months. So we get, for those 5 months, to really contemplate what we want to do about all this stuff. How are we going to transform ourselves? How are we going to transform the world? Pluto does not operate on a speed level that humans do. It has a much, much bigger picture. And it operates really slowly. So basically, during those 5 months, it's going to be 2 or 3 steps back. More likely than not, a lot of the restriction, economically, physically, authoritarianly, is going to continue very heavily for those 5 months, and likely through the rest of the Pluto-Saturn conjunction of this year into next year. And then we will see, when Saturn and Jupiter conjunct in Aquarius next year, what kind of new world may start to form post all of these problems. All right. The tough love transit talk. Did astrologers see stuff like this coming? Absolutely. Did we know the exact form it was going to come in? Not exactly. But every time Pluto-Saturn gets together, the structures of old society crumble and new things change. The United States is having its Pluto return in the next few years. Same thing for it. The United States is going to be one of the most sensitive points in the world to all the changes that are going on. Brave New World. Brave New World. Do we want it to be a better one? I mean, look. The downturn of all this economic activity is improving the global climate situation. So there's not all bad coming out of this. There's a lot for us to contemplate in this situation. All right, this is Matt Lawton, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. Sorry for this serious heart-to-heart talk, but lots of people asking me in the last week, oh my gosh, did you see something like this coming? Said it right at the beginning of the year. We're in for a rough ride. We're in for a lot of authoritarian type power and restriction coming our way. Now we know why. Now we know what we're up against. Now we see the weaknesses. What are we going to do about it? You and me, we make up society. What kind of world do we want after all of this is done? Because all of this being done is going to be part of that new reality. All right, like I said, Matt Lawton, Astrological Winds channel. My email, matthue823@gmail.com. Do all kinds of readings and astrological services. Would love to look at your transits for you so that you know what you need to focus on. Signing off. Until next week's weekly. Take care now and stay well.